Ayo Edebiri is one of the rising stars of our culture. Known for her work in The Bear, known for humor, depth, vulnerability, she is also someone who carries weight beyond her roles. In recent days, Ayo Edebiri has become the focal point of a heated conversation about race, representation, journalism, and what it means to be seen and heard. This is the story of when Ayo Edebiri stood her ground, interview backlash, and public discourse. The moment began during the Venice Film Festival. Edebiri, Julia Roberts, and Andrew Garfield were promoting After the Hunt, a film that dives into themes of sexual assault, power, accountability, and the aftermath of movements like Feminism and Black Lives Matter. The film is not abstract. It is directly tied to conversations that the world continues to have. It is relevant. It is urgent. In an interview with Italian journalist Federica Polidoro of Arts Life TV, a question was asked. The question was phrased like this: what have we lost during the politically correct era, and what should we expect in Hollywood after the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter are done? But crucially, the question was directed only to Julia Roberts and Andrew Garfield. Edebiri, despite being the only black woman among the three, was excluded from being asked. The layers of what that implied were many. Roberts paused, asked the journalist to repeat the question, commented that with sunglasses she could not tell whom the question was for. Garfield turned toward his co-stars, visibly surprised. Edebiri herself looked confused. The air shifted. The tension was real. It is in moments like this that small slights can feel large. Then Edebiri spoke. She said she knew that the question was not for me, and expressed uncertainty if that was purposeful. Then she said clearly, "I do not think it is done at all." She elaborated that hashtags might not be used as much, but activism continues every day. She insisted that the work is beautiful, important, active, and unfinished. That statement shifted the narrative from awkward exclusion to empowered response. At this point, I want you to imagine something. You are in a room full of people whose attention you deserve by virtue of your identity and your lived experience. Then someone asks about issues that you are deeply connected to, but excludes you, even though you sit there visibly and speak truth to the movement. How would you respond? Would you sit silent to avoid rocking the boat? Or would you speak up, even if that means making people uncomfortable? Ayo Edebiri chose the latter. She stood her ground. The public reaction was swift. Social media lit up with support for Edebiri. Many praised her composure, her grace, her courage. Many criticized the journalist's decision to exclude her. People called it a microaggression. People said it was petty racism. People questioned whether this sort of exclusion is intentional or unthinking, but either way hurtful and telling. Many pointed out that when you are the only person of color in a room, being ignored in questions directly about race or gender is painful and systemic. At the same time, media outlets covered the moment with different framing. Some emphasized Edebiri's strong response. Some focused on the controversy around the question. Some discussed the broader issue of representation in press settings. Others tried to explain the journalist's defense. Federica Polidoro responded on Instagram, stating that she had been subjected to personal insults. She denied attempting to exclude Edebiri in a racist way. She said she has interviewed people of every background, that her family is multi-ethnic, feminist, immigrant. She argued that difficult questions are part of journalism, that we must tolerate discomfort. But she did not issue an apology for excluding Edebiri or for the harmful possibility of delegitimizing someone's voice. There is more here than a single interview. This moment reflects larger public discourse about race, gender, power, and who is allowed to speak on issues when the conversation shifts. It reflects that even when someone is present, even when someone is entitled by experience, their visibility does not guarantee voice unless the interviewer chooses to give it. It is about the structures of inclusion or exclusion in media. What does this tell us about the expectations placed on black women in public conversation? Many expect them to always be composed, always be civil, always offer grace, even when slighted. When they speak up, they risk being judged harsher. When they remain silent, they risk being erased. Edebiri's response navigated that tension. She acknowledged the exclusion politely, then asserted truth. She asserted that activism has not ended. She reminded us that absence of headlines does not equal end of work. Another layer is about perception vs intention. Some people will ask, was exclusion intentional or a mistake? Did the journalist mean to exclude Edebiri or just not think? Or was the phrasing sloppy? For many in the audience, intention matters less than effect. The effect was harm, the effect was erasure, the effect was a question about silence and visibility. The public conversation moved into whether we expect more from interviewers, better awareness, more inclusive framing, more sensitivity. This incident also sparked discussion about activism fatigue. Several commentators noted that although headline coverage of Fame Me Too or Black Lives Matter is less intense than in previous years. That does not mean the movements are over. That work continues. Edebiri's line about hashtags might not be used as much, but people doing work every day resonated. Many shared that sentiment activism does not end just because it is less visible on the news. But there were critics too. Some defended Polidoro's journalistic framing. They argued that journalists need to ask provocative questions. They argued that social media is harsh, that people rush to judgment. Some claimed Polidoro's multi-ethnic background and feminist stance show lack of malicious intent. Some said that outrage online tends to exaggerate moments. Others asked if Edebiri over-responded, but such critiques were met with pushback. Many pointed out that no good faith defense of exclusion exists when the question is exclusively directed to white people about issues tied to race. The fallout is still unfolding. Some see this as another step in awareness. Interviewers may think twice before excluding voices. Publicists may guide who gets asked what. Media outlets may reconsider how questions are framed in group interviews. And celebrities may continue to push back in real time when they are slighted, rather than letting these moments pass. For Edebiri, this episode likely reinforces her public image as someone who is thoughtful, fierce, principled. It shows that she is not only talented in her craft, but also unwilling to be silenced. She is part of a generation of performers who understand that their voice matters as much as their roles. Now I want to ask you, when you see moments like this, when someone is excluded, when someone is asked indirectly rather than directly because of how they look, how they are, do you think it is always necessary to call it out? Or is there value in leaving some things unspoken so conversation can continue? Because sometimes speaking up carries personal cost, but remaining silent can carry damage to broader representation. In many ways, this moment is not exceptional because Edebiri acted. It is exceptional because many would hesitate. Many still do. Many still find themselves in rooms where the question is supposed to be theirs, but is redirected. This is part of invisible labor. This is part of cultural work that requires patience, strength, and visibility. The controversy also underscores the power of social media as a public square. A few seconds of video, a few words of response go viral. Not because people are chasing clicks alone, but because these slights feel cumulative. They feel lived. They feel real. And when someone like Edebiri is seen to push back, many see themselves reflected. At the end, what this episode shows is that speaking truth, when wronged, is not always comfortable, but it is necessary. That visibility without voice is incomplete. That representation is about more than presence. It is about being asked, being included, being heard. Ayo Edebiri stood her ground. She turned exclusion into a teaching moment. And in doing so, she reminded us that activism, justice, equity do not end with headlines. They continue every day in questions, in interviews, in choices about what voices are asked to speak. This is Fame Daily bringing you When Ayo Edebiri Stood Her Ground interview, backlash, and public discourse.